ODM party leader Dr. Oburu Odinga has drawn a red line in the sand, and in doing so, he has made the most consequential declaration about ODM's political direction that anyone in the party's current leadership has made since Raila Odinga died last year. Speaking on Friday, March 20th, 2026, at an Eid Lancheo held in Kisumu State Lodge, Oburu did not aid, did not qualify, and did not leave room for interpretation. ODM will not exceed the broad-based government arrangement with President William Ruto's United Democratic Alliance. The party will negotiate with the UDA ahead of the 2027 general election, and anyone calling on ODM to abandon that arrangement is in favor of what Oburu bluntly described as known allies is in his framing, asking the party to surrender real power for political uncertainty. That is not a position he is prepared to accept, he said. The venue of this declaration matters as much as its content. Kisumu is ODM's political heartland, the city that has defined the party's identity, delivered its most loyal voters bank, and endured the consequences of political exclusion across multiple election cycles. For Oburu to stand in Kisumu State Lodge and defend the UDA ODM arrangement is to make that defense in the most sensitive political terrain possible. He was not speaking to a neutral audience, he was speaking to the base, and he chose to tell that base directly that staying inside the government is the right call. Oburu's rhetoric framing of the broad-based arrangement as a source of tangible development for ODM regions carries a specific political logic. His argument is not ideological, it is transitional and territorial. He pointed to progress and development projects in ODM stronghold as the measurable return on the party's decision to enter government. In the calculus, he presented leaving that arrangement means leaving those projects, that access and that influence on the table. The question he effectively posed to his audience was whether the abstract appeal of opposition solidarity is worth more than the concrete infrastructure and resource that a government proximity delivers. The language Dr. Oburu deployed against the united opposition and it called for ODM to realign was pointed and deliberate. He dismissed those calling for ODM to seek new political shareholders, a term loaded with the implication that such actors are motivated by dividing rather than governance. His reference to the people who are dividing the country through shareholding was a direct shot at the opposition coalition that has been assembling around the former deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, framing the outrage to ODM not as a principal opposition politics, but a factional self-interest dressed in a national rhetoric. Dr. Oburu Odinga's defense on Ruto's recent combative public posture towards opposition leaders added another dimension to Friday's remarks. When he acknowledged that Ruto had been absorbing verbal assault from united opposition leaders for some time before responding in kind and characterized Ruto's eventual counter-attack as the release of a political firepower that has been stored up, and he was not merely offering commentary. He was endorsing the escalation and alignment ODM's brand publicly with Ruto's decision to fight back. That alignment will have consequences inside ODM for those members who believe the party's dignity requires a different posture. The internal contradiction that Oburu's hard stand creates within ODM is significant and unresolved. He leads a party that contains prominent figures who have been vocally critical on the broad-based government arrangement, who question its legal and political legitimacy, and who are actively engaging in opposition-facing political activities. His declaration in Kisumu does not silence those voices, it sharpens the confrontation with them. Every public reaffirmation of the UDA ODM pact that Oburu makes increases the cost of those within the party who are moving in the opposite direction, and it forces a reckoning that ODM's internal structure will eventually have to confront formally. The negotiating framework that Oburu referenced the ongoing talks between ODM and UDA ahead of the 2027 general election as a structural foundation that President William Ruto formalized the UDA ODM joint broad-based parliamentary group meeting on Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. At that session, which marked the first anniversary of the broad-based partnership, Ruto proposed the formation of a dedicated negotiating team drawn from both parliamentary caucuses to oversee full implementation of the joint UDA ODM agenda. That proposal institutionalized what had previously been seen as informal arrangement, giving the coalition machinery and a divine process for the negotiation that Oburu says had already underway. Ruto's proposal at the March 3rd parliamentary group meeting was a deliberate act of institutional consolidation by recommending a formal negotiating team with membership from both parliaments. It transformed the broad-based agreement from a political understanding into a structured process with identifiable participants and a divine mandate. For ODM members sitting on that team, that structure create an accountability in both directions to the party and to the joint agenda, making it harder to simultaneously participate in the negotiation and publicly undermining its legitimacy. Siaya Governor James Orengo represents the sharpest internal contradiction to everything Oburu articulated on Friday. In an interview on March 9th, 2026, Orengo dismissed the broad-based government as a structure built on nothing, no formal agreement, no legal foundation, and no genuine mandate from the late Raila Odinga, whom Orengo argued signed what amount to a memorandum of understanding, primarily to mandate or manage internal party unity rather than to authorize a formal coalition.